Thanks for chipping in for new Cyberpunk 2077 lore covering the Night City of 2045. The origins of Night City began with a small coastal town originally known as Morro Bay, located at a junction between northern and southern California. In late 1992, a band of roving boosters descended on the tiny coastal hamlet and nearly razed it to the ground. This massacre and the closure of the nearby Three Fingers power plant considerably lowered the price of property in Morro Bay. An enterprising land developer named Richard Knight bought up the entire town of Morro Bay, the majority of which would later become the corporate center and city center areas. Richard Knight, at the time, was a young partner in the construction company of Halsey, Ferris and Knight, but he soon departed to found his own development firm, Knight International. Knight had a dream of creating the ideal city, a city of the future so grand that all of the cities built before or after would be compared to it. The next step would be to secure the capital that would be needed to finance the project. Luckily, history and the forces of a collapsing society worked on the entrepreneur's side. With the collapse, many megacorporations were starting to look at establishing their own urban areas, controlled zones free of crime, poverty and debt. City governments would be corporate run, allowing optimum zoning and no anti-business elements to interfere with corporate growth. Knight's plan was tailor-made for their purposes. He provided the design and construction capacities they didn't have, and the megacorporations provided the necessary cash. As fate would have it, Petrochem owned both drilling rights and most of the land surrounding the moderately populated Del Coronado Bay region. A $132 million purchase secured the remaining property, and by 1993, Coronado City, Richard Knight's dream city, was under construction. Knight's plan involved dredging the shallow Del Coronado Bay to accommodate bulk carriers, while extending the upper peninsula on which the old town stood. The existing township of Del Coronado, with a population of about 28,000, was to be integrated into a picturesque old downtown, while a gigantic corporate plaza would become the new nexus of the city. The old suburbs would be merged with larger residential groupings involving planned growth and preserving the neighborhood-like feel. Unfortunately for Richard, his story doesn't have a happy ending. During the first 4 years of construction, there were daily threats against Knight's life. A proud and self-reliant man, he ignored them. When the threats escalated to the level of sabotage and intimidation, he called in his corporate allies, who dealt with the threats in a ruthless but limited manner. Knight's luck eventually ran out. On September 20th, 1998, he was shot and killed in his penthouse suite at the top of the newly constructed Parkview Tower. His killer was never apprehended. In his memory, the newly appointed city council officially renamed Coronado City as Night City. Shortly afterwards, the scramble for power began. The next 7 years were chaotic as various powers battled for control of the city. The corporations controlled the civic government and the corporate center. The mob controlled almost all service-related businesses. During this time, the gangs, backed by mob and corporate sponsors, established themselves in the remaining suburbs of the old city, the one area that had never had the chance to be added to Knight's urban plan. These suburbs would become the precursor to the infamous combat zone. Between selling contracts to their cronies, setting up drug and extortion rackets, and inviting the scum of the collapse into the area, the gangs managed to turn a relatively clean, modern city into an embattled war zone. By 2005, the mob had firmly established itself within Night City. In contrast, the corporations built their strongholds in the outlying Beavervilles and their lofty corporate plaza fortresses. They had little or no interest in running the city, and the civic leaders were unable to lead without corporate masters to pull the strings and provide the muscle. The next 4 years are often referred to as the Dark Ages of Night City, with more murders in that 4-year span than there were for most cities in 10. The mob ruled the city with an iron fist, killing anyone who dared oppose them. Such notorious gangs as the Bloodraisers and the Slaughterhouse made their debut. Night City soon became the closest thing to hell on earth, a complete war zone. The number of unsolved murders documented by the police rose into the thousands. The corporations finally decided they had enough. From 2009, they battled the underworld for control of Night City. Like a rival corporation, the mob had its own goals, and these did not fit into the corporate agenda. If the mob would not play by the rules, the corporations could deal with them on the same level. Led by Arasaka-trained paramilitary troops and tanks and AV combat aerodynes, a wave of bombings, assassinations, and outright street battles descended upon the mob's ill-prepared cadres. When the smoke cleared, the corporations had utterly destroyed the mob's power base in Night City. By 2020, Night City was a rapidly growing urban region, still rife with violence and street crime, but with strong economic growth in the corporate sector. It was the quintessential city of the cyberpunk future, gritty, dangerous, but possessed of an urban slick and stylish cool that made it unique. Former samurai Bess Isis, now a Net54 newscaster and one of Night City's most well-known public figures, stated that nobody ever leaves Night City except in a body bag. Because of its free state status, Night City was home to units on both sides of the Fourth Corporate War. This resulted in constant street-to-street fighting, especially around the corporate zone, where both factions maintained substantial office complexes. During this time, the tallest buildings in Night City were the twin Arasaka Towers, which also housed the Arasaka Arcology. Militech opted to use a pocket nuke carried by Morgan Blackhand and Team Omega to level the entire structure. The blast obliterated the twin towers, causing them to collapse outward. The entire center of the city became rubble in seconds. Most people in the area died instantly. A lot of Night City was built on fill because the original elevation was only 16 feet above sea level. So the nuke caused a mini earthquake that liquefied parts of the fill and flooded the inner city. The explosion was technically an air blast since the detonation went off at roughly 1,200 feet. While this lessened overall long-term radioactivity, most of what remained penetrated only the huge skyscraper towers surrounding the blast. Tons of raw concrete and steel was instantly converted into particulate debris, which rained down on the entire Northern California region and far out to sea for many months. The dust clouds spiraled up into the sky, turning it red for almost 2 years, hence giving birth to the name, the Time of the Red. President Kress blamed the Night City attack on Arasaka, although she was soon able to determine that the actual weapon used had been supplied by a Militech strike team. It was rumored that Morgan Blackhand supplied her with information on the failed Militech operation. The lie was that Arasaka blew up the corporate center in an area denial attack to stop Militech from seizing the Arasaka's Night City office. Arasaka did have a much larger thermonuclear device buried in the foundations of the towers for just that reason, but the explosion of the Militech pocket nuke rendered this plan inoperable. It is currently unknown what happened to the Arasaka nuke. Let's just say I have a sneaking suspicion it will be found in 2077. Using the information at her disposal, Kress brought Militech under her control and created a false narrative about Arasaka being the evil foreign megacorporation. Kress also showed no interest in helping Night City. As a free state of Northern California, by letting Night City fall into complete disarray, she could bring it back under the government's control. But Night City was not about to give up so easily. By the time of 2040, the restoration of Night City was firmly underway. Various allies such as the Edgerunners and Nomads helped. In particular, the Aldecaldo clan and the Stormtech Corporation were instrumental as they had gained a myriad of experience after the Chicago project. In the Time of the Red, Night City is a city undergoing significant change. Areas are constantly being rebuilt. The first temporary housing is rapidly being replaced by a new generation of gigantic mega buildings. These towering structures encompass living spaces, entertainment, food courts, and shopping malls, all in their centralized hubs. As time goes on, these evolve to become the main habitable spaces in Night City, such as Watson and Haywood. And thus, we come to the end of 2045 and look towards the future of 2077. Hey Samurai, are you interested in more Cyberpunk 2077 content? Then consider subscribing. Thank you for chipping in.